Thanks for tuning in. I want to talk to you about 14 different coverages that you should be considering in your insurance program as a mission-sending organization. I'll go ahead and jump right in. First, you need to be thinking about property insurance. There's a couple of components. If you own buildings, think about insuring those buildings. Contents are everything inside of the building, so desks, chairs, computers. You need to think about business income coverage and extra expense. So if there's a fire in your property, you'll need to rent another property. You'll need to pay for extra expenses with relocating. And it's important to also think about crime coverage, which is embezzlement. Not a fun thing to think about, but we have to consider it. Second category of coverage to think about would be general liability insurance, which pays for bodily injury and property damage you cause to others. Most common claim you'll have is a slip and fall. Third category of coverage to think about is sexual abuse or sexual molestation coverage. Every mission-sending organization is a little bit different. Sometimes you have operations inside the United States you're concerned about. A lot of times what you're thinking about is overseas, but what we're worried about here is inappropriate sexual conduct with children. Fourth would be professional liability or counseling coverage. Depending on what you do, you may be offering marital counseling, you may be offering business counseling, you may be offering micro loans to small businesses. Professional liability is an important part. Fifth would be vehicle insurance. Inside the United States, you got to think about it from a domestic perspective, and outside the United States, you got to think about it from that perspective as well. Six is workers' compensation insurance. A lot of mission-sending organizations within the United States, their employees are mostly fundraisers and administrative people, and their direct service providers are located outside the United States. I'm going to talk about the foreign coverages here in a little bit, but when I'm saying workers' compensation here, what I'm saying is if somebody lives in New Jersey and makes phone calls from New Jersey, you need workers' comp in New Jersey. The seventh category coverage would be directors and officers insurance. This protects your board for mismanagement of funds and misdirection of the organization. The eighth coverage to think about is employment practices liability. This protects you for hiring and firing decisions you make. Now, once again, you got to look at the policy forms and distinguish whether it's only going to pay for lawsuits inside the United States or if it'll protect you worldwide. It's a big distinction. The next coverage to think about is cyber liability insurance. Pretty much every mission-sending organization is going to have a donor role, so it's important to have a cyber liability program that would pay for credit monitoring services and damages in the event that you're hacked. And after this, I want to start talking about foreign coverages. What I've talked about up to this point are coverages within the United States for the most part. Now let's go outside the United States. We want to think about foreign general liability insurance, which would be a lawsuit in a country outside U.S. properties for bodily injury and property damage. The next category of coverage to consider would be foreign contingent auto. This is if you have a vehicle accident in a foreign country and your organization is sued in a foreign court. After that, the 12th one to think about would be foreign voluntary compensation. Earlier in this video, I talked about an employee getting hurt in New Jersey that makes phone calls in New Jersey. Well, what if that person's traveling to Niger and gets hurt in Niger after they've been there for 3 months? That can get pretty complicated from a workers' compensation perspective. It's important that you're putting the complementary pieces in place to pay for their injuries if they get hurt while they're overseas. The 13th thing to think about is kidnap and ransom coverage. As a mission-sending organization, you might be going into some high-crime areas where kidnap and ransom is big business. It's important to have a program in place to pay for people that will conduct the hostage negotiations and pay for that settlement. And lastly is trip travel coverage. Somebody loses a bag, somebody gets hurt overseas while they're on a missions trip. It's important to have money in place for that. That's 14 things to think about in your program for mission-sending organizations. If any of this has you asking questions about your current program and broker relationship, and you'd like to talk to someone with experience in your field, please reach out to us and request a quote at www.bitnerhenry.com. I'm Daryl Henry with Bitner Henry Insurance Group, and we serve those who serve others.